Hey guys, it's Michael Kummer here. In today's video I want to introduce you to Apollo Neuroscience, a wearable that uses low frequency, inaudible sound waves or vibrations to help reduce stress, improve sleep and focus, and positively influence your nervous system. Now, Apollo was developed by neuroscientists at the University of Pittsburgh, and I've been using Apollo for the past 12 months to help improve my sleep, speed up recovery, increase my HRV, help reduce stress, and many other things. So in today's video I want to tell you everything there is to know about Apollo, how it exactly works, what's the science behind it, and how I've been using it to help me with certain areas in my life, in particular stress management and improving sleep, and in particular improve my deep sleep. But as always, before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel and you click on the little alert button so you get notified when I publish more videos like this. Also, I've written about many of these topics, including an in-depth Apollo Neuro review on my blog. I've written about HRV and ways that I use to improve my HRV, so check those out. I've linked those all in the description below to make sure you get more information if you want to continue reading. So let's talk about how Apollo exactly works. I already mentioned that it uses vibrations. It uses specific vibration patterns that engage your sense of touch. And your sense of touch is directly connected with your nervous system. So as you feel certain patterns, your nervous system responds in a certain way. And before we get into more details, let me briefly tell you about the two main branches of your nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous systems, and how they are connected and how that also relates to your heart rate variability. That's important to understand how Apollo works. So there are, as I said, two branches of your nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic branch is responsible for resting and digesting, feeding and breathing. So it's all of the things that are engaged when you're relaxed, when you're trying to recover. The sympathetic branch is related to your fight and flight response. So if you're in danger, if you're stressed, if you're working out or performing physical activity, then your sympathetic branch is typically more engaged. Now, what's important to understand is that these two branches are under constant competition. So they both kind of pull on the same rope to see who gets more of that rope. And that engagement, that competition is reflected by your heart rate variability. That's the difference in timing between heartbeats. So if you have a pulse of, let's say, 60 beats per minute, then your heart doesn't beat exactly once every second. It might beat between beat 1 and beat 2, there might be at some point 1005 milliseconds. Then between the second and the third, 985 milliseconds. So there's always a slight variation, and that variation gives you an indication of whether your parasympathetic or your sympathetic nervous system is more engaged at a given point in time. And so that's important to understand, because you can measure the impact of Apollo by looking and measuring your HRV, your heart rate variability. And that's what some of the studies that I'm gonna mention later have done, to directly see how Apollo influences HRV and thus indirectly your nervous system. What's important to understand is that with Apollo there are different vibration patterns. I'm going to show you that in a little bit when we look into the app, and I'll show you a quick demo. The important part to understand here is that Apollo can be used to either up or down regulate either the sympathetic or the parasympathetic branch of your nervous system. So if you want to have more energy, if you just woke up and you need a burst of energy, you can use Apollo to upregulate your sympathetic branch, the one that's responsible for fight or flight, that increases your heart rate, that gets you going, that prepares you for a fight or to run away in the most extreme case. But it also helps you to just feel more energy, to be more awake, to be more engaged maybe, to be more focused. Whereas if you want to use Apollo to relax, unwind, to improve your sleep, to increase your deep sleep, you can use it to upregulate your parasympathetic nervous system and to suppress your sympathetic nervous system. So whenever one is up, the other one is down. That's important to understand. And with Apollo, you can do both depending on what you want to achieve. So before we look at the hardware and the Apollo device itself, let's jump into the application real quick, and I'm going to show you some of those programs and vibration patterns that Apollo offers. So when you open the app, what you see is first different tiles with different programs that you can choose from. You also see the battery level right on top. And so the first couple of programs are meant to upregulate your sympathetic branch, to get you into a more responsive, more alert mode. So you can use the energy and wake up. Typically I use it in the morning after waking up. I put on Apollo, I turn it on, and it gives me a burst of energy, like a cup of coffee without the caffeine. Then their social and open program is meant, if you have like a get together and you want to be more alert, more focused, you can use that. Then there is the clear and focused mode that does exactly that. If you have to get some work done that's important, or you're on a deadline or whatever, you can use that to stay alert and focused. But all of these, to various degrees, upregulate your sympathetic branch. So they make you more alert, more responsive, increase your heart rate, get you going basically. And then we have a number of programs that can help you with the opposite, to wind down, to relax, to get ready for sleep, to maybe meditate. And so there is the rebuild and recover, the meditation and mindfulness, relax and unwind, and the sleep and renew. I use the relax and unwind typically in the evening once the kids are in bed, and I sit down with my wife on the couch. I put on Apollo, I turn it on, and it gets me in a really relaxed, calm mood. Before going to bed, or right when I go to bed, I use the sleep and renew. I typically wear Apollo on my ankle, so I use it to fall asleep, and that improves my deep sleep. I'm going to show you later a couple of screenshots from a Whoop app that show the deep sleep and some of the HRV improvements that I've seen with Apollo. And then I've also used Apollo for meditating. I've used it in combination with another gadget, Muse S, a brain sensing headband that I've recently reviewed on this channel and on this blog. And I've noticed that if I wear Apollo together with Muse to measure my brain activity, I'm significantly calmer and more focused, and my meditation sessions are much better when I use Apollo versus when I don't use it. So I can see that my brain waves are significantly down-regulated, if you will. That's because my sympathetic branch is suppressed, my parasympathetic is more alert or is more engaged, and so that really helps me improve my meditation. And so that's in a nutshell the app here. It's fairly straightforward. You open it up, Apollo is connected with Bluetooth, you pick the program you want to run. If you, for example, want to do the energy and wake up, you can set the intensity level here. It defaults to 1, but I've changed most of them to 100%. You can favorite your apps, you can change the time, how long you want to run the program, and then you press play, and that's pretty much it. So that's the app in a nutshell. There are a couple of, you can see that I've used Apollo now for almost 9,000 minutes since I got it a year ago. You get badges and stuff. I don't really look at that very much. I typically just pick the program I want to do and then run with it. And that's the app. Fairly straightforward, fairly easy. And with that, let's look at the hardware and see what's next. So the hardware is fairly straightforward as well. It consists of one sensor or vibration piece, basically, this one, and a strap. It actually comes with 2 straps. The one I have on here right now is the ankle strap. That's a little bit longer because I typically wear Apollo on my ankle instead of my wrist, because my wrists are occupied by the Whoop strap and by my Apple Watch. And even at night when I don't wear my Apple Watch, I prefer wearing Apollo on my ankle because I feel more comfortable than having it here on my wrist. But that's a personal choice. It comes with both. You can get it in different colors. I think when I got mine, there was only black at the time, but now they have different colors, different strap options, different shades of that metal here, so you can pick and choose whatever you like best. On the side, we have 2 buttons and an LED. The LED simply is an indicator if the program is running, if the device is turned on. What's cool about those buttons is, well, they are meant to increase and decrease the intensity. So while the program is running, you can simply press each button to increase or decrease the intensity by 5%. You can push both at the same time to either pause the program or restart it, either the current session if you paused it, or start the previous session that you had. So for example, if I don't use Apollo during the day, I know that from the previous night it's set to the sleep program. So when I go to bed at night, I simply put it on, I push both buttons, and the sleep program starts running. I don't even have to go to the app. That's convenient if you don't want to use your phone before bed and you already know that the last program that you had or that you ran was the sleep program. So just push both buttons and you're good to go. On the back here is a micro USB port that you can use to charge Apollo. I typically do it in the morning. If I use Apollo at night, I plug it in the morning so it's charged, so I can use it either throughout the day or then at night again. That's pretty much the hardware. It's very comfortable to adjust exactly to where, how tight it should be. It has a Velcro strap, and yeah, nothing to it. Pretty straightforward. One thing I should notice it, since I wear it on my ankle most of the time, I've had a couple of occasions where I used it in the morning while dropping off the kids, and when I wear shorts and you have something on your ankle that looks like an ankle monitor, then people might think you're under house arrest or something. That's something to consider. I don't care, but I've certainly gotten a couple of funny looks walking into the school of my kids with this Apollo on my ankle. So let's talk about scientific evidence real quick. Now, as I mentioned before, Apollo was developed by neuroscientists at the University of Pittsburgh, and they've performed a couple of studies, double-blind studies, crossover trials, to make sure that they could really test and compare the group that uses Apollo or used Apollo versus the group that did not. And in all the studies that I've read, I'm going to link all of them down below, so you can really check out the details if you want to read up more. But in all the studies, Apollo has been shown to increase HRV, cognitive performance, and focus. One thing I should point out is obviously, in none of the studies, the nervous system or changes to the nervous system wasn't directly measured by tapping into the vagus nerve. As you can imagine, if you, measure vagal tone directly, it is an invasive procedure and nobody wants to go through that. The good news is you don't have to, because you can measure heart rate variability. It's an indirect indication of your vagal tone, of how your nervous system is doing. So in all of the studies that were conducted with Apollo, scientists measured HRV, heart rate variability, again, because it's an indirect indication of how your nervous system is doing, how the competition between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is, and they did it with athletes, with non-athletes, and in all of those cases, scientists could clearly show improvements in HRV, meaning that Apollo could positively influence vagal tone and ultimately how the competition between the sympathetic and parasympathetic branch of your nervous system. So Apollo works. Been scientifically proven to work. So let me tell you a little bit about how I've been using Apollo and how it has helped me. Now, obviously, I'm a one-man study. I'm not a placebo-controlled trial, but I've noticed significant differences on days and nights when I use Apollo versus on those where I don't. And I've noticed 3 areas where Apollo has significantly influenced my stress and my sleep. And one is, well, for sleeping, I get more deep sleep. Based on Whoop, I get an average of 7 minutes more deep sleep during nights when I wear Apollo. My HRV has gone up as well, on average by about 10 milliseconds. And I've written about all of the things that I've done to improve my HRV in a separate video, so check this out. But I can clearly tell that on nights or during nights when I wear Apollo, my HRV is higher, because Whoop measures HRV during deep sleep. And so and deep sleep typically occurs in the first half of the night. So that's the time when Apollo is active. I go to bed, I turn on Apollo, and for the first 2 hours, I get the effects of Apollo. And then they linger for a couple of more hours, and during that time, Whoop measures my HRV and my deep sleep. And so I've noticed during that time, higher HRV and more deep sleep, and I wake up ultimately more rested the next morning. I've also noticed that when I get a little bit anxious in the early, late afternoon, when I still have a lot of work left to do and I don't know if I can get to it today, or I don't know what to do first, I put on Apollo, I turn it on, I take a couple of deep breaths, and I can immediately feel the tension leaving my body. It's quite amazing. And at first I thought maybe that's just me imagining that effect. Maybe it's just all in my head. And so what I've done is, to really find out how Apollo can influence the activity in my brain, I used the Muse S headband, that brain sensing headband that I've reviewed here recently, because that's an EEG. It measures brain activity. It can show me exactly the waves, my brain waves basically. And so I've used Muse S in combination with Apollo. I've done it during a 5-minute meditation session to find out, if I'm wearing Apollo, how my brain activity is and how calm I am, versus doing the same meditation session without Apollo. And the differences are dramatic. I mean, you can see it up here in the screenshot, the session with and without Apollo. I'm significantly calmer while wearing Apollo and meditating as reflected by my brainwave activity versus when I don't use Apollo. So that was confirmation for me that I didn't just imagine all of that. It's reflected by raw data, by my brainwaves, that Apollo has a significant positive impact on my nervous system, on my stress management, and ultimately how calm I am. So I've been using Apollo a lot for stress management. Obviously, whenever I feel like anxious, whenever I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed, I use Apollo. I use it at night to relax. I use it sometimes in the morning, maybe on nights when I didn't sleep great, when I maybe had a glass of wine too much in the morning to get like a burst of energy, etc. I'm using it strategically throughout the day, those different programs, and it's been working great for me. So let's talk about pricing. Now, Apollo costs $349. I know that's a lot of money, but in my opinion, it's worth it for several reasons. First of all, someone might say, well, I can do deep breathing, I can do meditation, I can do many other things to help down-regulate my sympathetic branch. I can, relax doing other things. And while that's true, all of those techniques require you to do something and to take time out of your day. I'm not saying don't meditate, don't breathe. I do that as well. But I can tell you Apollo is a passive device. I can put it on and I can continue doing whatever I was doing before. I can wear it while working, I can wear it while sleeping. I don't have to do anything to get the benefits of the device. And I think that is a major factor in how successful you are with stress management and some of those other things where Apollo can help in the long run. Because I know that unless you're really committed to meditation or to some of those other techniques, unless you do them consistently, they're not gonna help you in the long run. If you meditate for 1 week and then you stop, once you stop, all the benefits go out of the window again. With Apollo, you keep using the device because you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is put it on. The entry barrier is very low, and that makes Apollo so attractive to me. And in combination, of course, with meditation, as you've seen before, with deep breathing, it can have an even more profound impact. So all those little things that you can do to help manage stress compound. So if I use Apollo together with breathing and with meditation, it has even a greater impact than the device by itself, or meditation by itself, or breathing by itself. Bringing all of that together is sometimes necessary for the amount of stress that I'm under, and I'm sure you're no different. Our lives are incredibly stressful, and just doing one little thing here or there might not be enough to make a significant dent in how you manage stress and how you perceive stress. And so by using Apollo, and then hopefully some of the other things that I've covered on my blog, breathing, exercise, mindfulness, etc., can really make a profound difference and have a profound impact on how you manage stress, and that hopefully makes you happier in the long run. Now, before we get into a quick FAQ so I can answer a couple of the frequently asked questions that I've gotten, let's talk about two of the things that I believe Apollo could do better. One is, I think, the app, as you've seen in the screenshot before, those tiles are fairly big. I think if you would shrink them a little bit and all of them would show on the first screen, you could avoid the scrolling, you could avoid, favoriting some of them, because if they're all easily accessible by a click or by a tap, then it's just a matter of cleaning up the UI a little bit, in my opinion. Not a biggie, but I think that would be an easy and nice improvement. The other thing, I would like to get notifications when the battery runs low. I know that the phone might not be permanently connected to Apollo, especially if the device turns off after not being used for a while to conserve battery life. But it would be nice if you get like an indication of what's the remaining battery life, either by LED indicators on the device itself, or if when it's turned on via notification. That would be cool. The other thing that I would really like to see, and that's less of an issue with Apollo, I think, and more on the Whoop side, Whoop has this journal that allows me to answer questions in the morning, that Whoop then correlates with changes in sleep quality and in recovery. It would be awesome if I could say I used Apollo for 10 minutes today. And so Whoop could then correlate that for me over the long run. So I don't have to crunch those numbers manually. I would get a monthly report from Whoop and say, hey, anytime you use Apollo, your HRV goes up or your deep sleep increases. Those kind of things that I try to correlate manually. Would be cool if those two companies would work together, find some way of integration, and let the software do the number crunching. That's what we have software for. But that was pretty much it. Otherwise, Apollo is pretty solid. Maybe the battery life could improve a little bit. I think you have to, if you use it a lot like I've been doing, you have to charge it once a day or so. Not a big deal, but it would be cool if the battery would last at least a couple of days. Now with that, let's get into some of the frequently asked questions. Most important question, how quickly can you notice an impact of Apollo? How quickly does it work, and how long do the effects last? Well, you can notice the impact within a few seconds to maybe a few minutes, depending on what program you use and what level of stress you're under, how your nervous system is currently doing, how much your sympathetic nervous system is maybe in overdrive at a given moment. But typically within a few seconds to a few minutes, you feel the effects of Apollo. And they last between 30 minutes to maybe 2 hours or so. So they are not permanent. That means your nervous system obviously constantly adapts to your environment. If you use Apollo to calm down, and then an hour later you get someone scares the shit out of you, you get into sympathetic mode again. You get into a fight or flight response. So Apollo is not gonna prevent you from getting into that state that you maybe need to get in to save your life or to run away or to fight or whatever the case might be. But it lasts a couple of hours typically, and that's why, depending on your situation, if you're super stressed out throughout the day, I might recommend using Apollo a couple of times during the day, maybe in the morning, noon, and in the afternoon. That's what I do if I'm super stressed throughout the day. I just use Apollo more often, whenever I see the need and whenever I feel like I need to calm down a little bit. Next question is related to electromagnetic fields or radiation. Now, any electronic device emits EMFs, obviously. Now, and that's particularly important or critical for sleeping. So if you want to wear Apollo at night, you can turn the device into airplane mode. So it doesn't communicate, it turns off the Bluetooth radio basically, and it doesn't communicate with the phone, thus reducing your EMF exposure. I typically do that. I turn off my phone into airplane mode, I turn Apollo into airplane mode, and so I can use it safely at night without having to worry about EMFs. The next question is Apollo waterproof? No, it's not. I mean, it's splash resistant, so you can wear it while washing your hands and stuff, but don't take a bath with it, don't take it into the shower, don't go swim with it. That would probably damage the device. Next question, is it safe for pregnant women? Yes. I mean, there is no indication why it wouldn't be. It's simply vibrations that influence your nervous system. There is nothing associated with pregnancy that would prohibit you from wearing it, even if you're pregnant. If you are, congratulations. All right, that was it. So let's wrap it up. Again, Apollo is a very effective neuroscience device. It uses vibration, very gentle vibrations that engage your sense of touch and influence your nervous system. It can help you reduce stress, improve your focus, improve sleep, in particular deep sleep, help you recover quicker, and overall have a positive influence on your nervous system. You can use it for either upregulating or downregulating either your sympathetic or parasympathetic branch, so you can use it to get more energy or to wind down and relax. Either one is possible. The mobile app is super easy to use. It's a passive device. That means you don't have to do anything extra to use it. You just wear it either around your wrist or on your ankle, and you turn it on and you're good to go. You feel the effects very quickly. They last for a couple of hours, and I've been using it for over a year now, since September of last year, to help me reduce stress, to sleep better, increase my heart rate variability, and increase my deep sleep. And that's pretty much it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, let me know in the comments below what I could have done better. Until next time.